St. Louis, or Ndar as it is called in Wolof, is the capital of Senegal's St. Louis region, located in the northwest of Senegal, near the mouth of the Senegal River, and 320 kilometers north of Senegal's capital city Dakar. It has a population officially estimated at 176,000 in 2005. St. Louis was the capital of the French colony of Senegal from 1673 until 1902 and French West Africa from 1895 until 1902, when the capital was moved to Dakar. From 1920 to 1957 it also served as the capital of the neighboring colony of Mauritania. Geography. The heart of the old colonial city is located on a narrow island in the Senegal River, 25 kilometers from its mouth. At this point the river is separated from the Atlantic Ocean to the west by a narrow sand spit, the Langue de Barbarie, which has also been urbanized. Yet a third part of the city, Soar, lies on the eastern mainland and is nearly surrounded by tidal marshes. St. Louis is situated on the Mauritanian border, though the border crossing is at Rosso, 100 kilometers upstream. Three characteristics give St. Louis its distinctive geographic appearance: the Sahel, the marshes, and the Langue de Barbarie. Sahel. Part of the Sahel, a transitional desertic band that separates the dunes of the Sahara from the baobabs of the savannah. St. Louis' landscape is characterized by occasional acacias and is disturbed by sandstorms during the dry season. Marshes. The marshes are flood basins that form during the rainy season when the river overflows into the countryside, creating ponds and stretches of mangroves that attract birds like flamingos and pelicans. Langue de Barbarie. The Langue de Barbarie, a 600 kilometers long stretch of sand from Nouadhibou in Mauritania to St. Louis, over a stretch of 25 kilometers, separates the lower Senegal River from the Atlantic Ocean. Its vegetation mainly consists of phyllow trees propagated to prevent soil erosion in sandy and salty soils. Climate. St. Louis only has two seasons: the rainy season from June to October, characterized by heat, humidity, and storms, and the dry season from November to May, characterized by cool ocean breeze and dust from the Harmattan winds. A 2011 documentary described St. Louis as the African city most threatened by rising sea levels. History. St. Louis was established in 1659 by French traders on an uninhabited island called Ndar. It was baptized St. Louis du Fort in homage to the former French King Louis IX, who had been made a saint, as well as to the contemporary King, Louis XIV. It was the first permanent French settlement in Senegal. The fortified factory commanded trade along the Senegal River. Slaves, hides, beeswax, ambergris, and, later, gum arabic were exported. During the 7 Years' War in 1758, British forces captured Senegal. In February 1779, French forces recaptured St. Louis. In the late 18th century, St. Louis had about 5,000 inhabitants, not counting an indeterminate number of slaves in transit. St. Louis became the leading urban center in sub-Saharan Africa. Between 1659 and 1779, 9 chartered companies succeeded one another in administering St. Louis, as in Gorea, a Franco-African Creole, or MEAQTI's merchant community characterized by the famous Signas, or bourgeois women entrepreneurs, grew up in St. Louis during the 17th and 18th centuries. The MEAQTIs were important to the economic, social, cultural, and political life of the city. They created a distinctive urban culture characterized by public displays of elegance, refined entertainment, and popular festivities. They controlled most of the upcountry river trade and they financed the principal Catholic institutions. MEAQTI's mayor was first designated by the governor in 1778. civic franchise was further consolidated in 1872, when St. Louis became a French commune. Louis Faidherbe, who became the governor of the colony of Senegal in 1854, contributed greatly to the development and modernization of St. Louis. His large-scale projects included the building of bridges, provisioning of fresh drinking water, and the construction of an overland telegraph line to Dakar. St. Louis became capital of the Federation of French West African Colonies in 1895, but relinquished this role to Dakar in 1902. St. Louis' fortunes began to wane as those of Dakar waxed. Access to its port became increasingly awkward in the age of the steamship, and the completion of the Dakar-St. Louis Railroad in 1885 meant that up-country trade effectively circumvented its port. Large French firms, many from the city of Bordeaux, took over the new commercial networks of the interior, marginalizing the Émir-Quti's traders in the process. St. Louis nonetheless maintained its status as capital of the colony of Senegal even after Dakar assumed the role of capital of the French West Africa Federation. The colonial institutions set up in the city in the 19th century, such as the Muslim Tribunal and the School for Chiefs' Sons, were to play important roles in the history of French Africa. Though relatively small in size, St. Louis dominated Senegalese politics throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, not least because of its numerous political parties and associations and its independent newspapers. Following independence, when Dakar became sole capital of the country, St. Louis slipped into a state of lethargy. As its French population and military departed, many of the town's shops, offices and businesses closed. This generated a loss of jobs and human potential, and less investment in the economic activities of St. Louis, thus causing its economic decline. For some people, however, St. Louis' decline was not just limited to its economy, but spread to all aspects of its life, as the loss of its past status meant less recognition and lack of interest from the colony's officials and, after Senegal's independence, from the Senegalese government. When its most famous political son, the French-educated lawyer Lamine Guy, died in 1968, the city lost its strongest proponent. Today, rich in 3 centuries of history, in cultural background, geography, architecture and other characteristics, St. Louis is a bridge between the savannah and the desert, the ocean and the river, tradition and modernity, Islam and Christianity, Europe and Africa. Home to a society with a distinctive lifestyle, St. Louis has retained its unique identity. No one comes without falling in love with the city, proudly say its people, who consider St. Louis as the birthplace of Senegalese terroir, the Wolof word for hospitability. Economy. St. Louis' economy is a third important, yet critical, facet of its identity. As is supported in the article, St. Louis has economically declined since the transfer of the capital of French Western Africa to Dakar. This has caused the dispossession of St. Louis of all its past economic attributes and is said to have reached its paroxysm in 1960 when the capital of the independent Senegal was transferred to Dakar. St. Louis, however, has remained an important tourist and trading center, and the city's economy, though not entirely recovered, is gradually reviving. Tourism constitutes an important part of St. Louis' economy. The city preserves much of its 19th-century morphology, reminiscent of other cities of the Creole Atlantic, Bahia, Cartagena, Havana and New Orleans. Thanks to its distinctive appearance, numerous sites of attraction and its international music festivals and cultural exhibitions, St. Louis attracts many tourists each year. St. Louis remains the most characteristically French colonial destination in West Africa, along with Gorée Island. Natural sites. Among St. Louis' numerous natural sites we have the National Park of the Langue de Barbarie, the National Park of the Birds of Juge, the Fauna Reserve of Guiambule, beaches like that of the Langue de Barbarie, the Colonial Waterworks at Makana, the Palace of Baron Roger at Richard Toll, the Diama Dam, and various hunting lodges on the south side of the Senegal River. National Park of the Langue de Barbarie. This park, which is 20 square kilometers large, occupies the southern point of the Langue de Barbarie, the estuary of the Senegal River and part of the continent. It hosts thousands of water birds like cormorants, thrushes, pink flamingos, pelicans, herons and ducks each year. National Park of the Birds of Juge, the world's third largest ornithological park. It is located 60 kilometers north of St. Louis. This park occupies over 120 square kilometers and includes part of the river and many lakes, basins, and marshes. About 3 million migrating birds of 400 species visit it each year. Fauna Reserve of Guiambule, located at a dozen kilometers south of the city of St. Louis. This reserve has an area of 7 square kilometers and shelters birds and endangered species such as the Dama gazelle, the Patis monkey and the African spurred tortoise. Museums, monuments and edifices. St. Louis Research Center and Documentation Museum of Senegal offers interesting panoramas of Senegal's history and ethnic movements over the years, expositions of traditional clothes and musical instruments, etc. Other interesting and attractive monuments and edifices of the Governor's Palace, the Gouvernance, where are located the town's administrative offices. The Parc Fade Herbie, named for the French governor at the center of town, Louis Fade Herbie. Colonial-era hotels. The historic airport at Dakar.From on the mainland. The Grande Mosquée. The Fade Herbie Bridge that connects the island to the Langue de Barbarie, and the jail and Servacious bridges that connect the island to the continent. Events and festivals. St. Louis is famous for its urban culture. The heritage of the Signers lives on in the city's many festivals and its cultivated sense of public display, and it is helping St. Louis emerge from decades of neglect. Panels, which show nighttime processions of giant paper lanterns, take place at Christmas time. The St. Louis Jazz Festival is the most important jazz festival in Africa. Jazz first became popular in the 1930s when records produced in Cuba were aired on the radio. After World War II, visiting U.S.GIs popularized jazz bands, and by the 1950s local groups had adopted a Cuban sound. Another music festival, 1-2-3 Musics, exhibits various genres of music. The festival Métisons, held for the first time in 2010, is a grassroots music festival organized by local communities and small businesses. Every edition sports international, national and local musical talent. The annual regatta, or Piro Grace, organized by teams of fishermen from Ndar, takes place on the little branch of the river, between Ndar Island and the Langue de Barbarie. The Magal of the Niari Rakas, a yearly commemoration of Sheikh Amadou Bamba Mbaka's 2 prayers in the Governor's Palace in 1895, is the city's largest religious gathering. The city was listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2000, and cultural tourism has become an engine of growth. As a result, a process of gentrification has set in, with many historic buildings on the island being turned into restaurants and hotels. Other economic activities beyond tourism. St. Louis is also a commercial and an industrial center for sugar production. Its other economic activities are fishing, irrigated alluvial agriculture, pastoral farming, trading and exportation of peanut skins. It is important to note that each of these economic activities is assured by a particular ethnic group. The Wolofs and Lebus, who are the main inhabitants of St. Louis, are mostly fishermen that live in fishing communities like Ndar on the Langue de Barbarie. The Fullers live in the inland and practice pastoral farming. The Moors, who are migrants from Mauritania, are mostly merchants, traders and shopkeepers found everywhere in St. Louis. St. Louis World Heritage. St. Louis' characteristic colonial architecture, along with its regular town plan, its location on an island at the mouth of the Senegal River, and the system of quays, gives St. Louis the distinctive appearance and identity that have raised the island to the rank of World Heritage since 2000. The island of St. Louis is inscribed on the World Heritage List on the basis of Criterion IV. Criterion I. The historic town of St. Louis exhibits an important exchange of values and influences on the development of education and culture, architecture, craftsmanship, and services in a large part of West Africa. Criterion IV. The island of St. Louis, a former capital of West Africa, is an outstanding example of a colonial city, characterized by its particular natural setting, and it illustrates the development of colonial government in this region. Threats to Old City. Rising sea levels, as well as water levels flowing out of the Senegal River, now threaten the low-lying islands which make up the city. In June 2008, Alain Badian of the United Nations UN Habitat Agency designated St. Louis as the city most threatened by rising sea levels in the whole of Africa, citing climate change and a failed 2004 river and tidal canal project as the cause. Education. Education is another important facet of St. Louis. With a large influence over education in colonial times, St. Louis is now a center of educational excellence. It is home to the University Gaston Berger and the military academy Charles N.T. Carrere. Gaston Berger University of St. Louis, Senegal's second university. The University Gaston Berger, which was created in 1990, offers studies organized in a number of general education and research faculties. Prytanée Militaire of St. Louis. The military academy Charles N.T. Carrere, commonly known as the Prytanée Militaire of St. Louis, was created in 1922. The school's mission today is to provide pupils from various African countries not only with a secondary education, but also a moral formation on the principles of patriotism, honor and discipline. Primary and secondary schools. École Française Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, a French international school serving preschool through college, is located in St. Louis. Notable inhabitants. St. Louis has been the birthplace and home of famous men such as LHADJ Malik Sy, K. Amadou Bamba Mbaké, Alfred Ami Acute De Acute Dodds, the fathers Jean-Baptiste Labat, Abbé David Boilet, Daniel Bradier, the naturalist Michel Danson, Louise Fate Herbie, politicians Blaise Diagne, Lamine Guy, the boxer Maberic Fall aka Battling Siki, the football player El Hadji Diouf, University of Virginia basketball player Hassan Seen, BKVEF Riga Santa Bamba Fall, the French photographer François Edmond Fortier, Syracuse Orange forward Bame Keita. International relations. Twin towns, sister cities. St. Louis is twinned with St. Louis, United States, Fez, Morocco, since 1979, Liège, Belgique, since 1980, Bologna, Italy, since 1991, Toulouse, France, since 2003, Fortaleza, Brazil, since 2006.